So, last video of 2018. The whiteboard is back for this one. You guys may have noticed that subscriber Jordan in South Africa has been doing a great job editing some of the recent videos. He's currently working on my Northern Hemisphere team. So until we get that one out, I'm going to finish the year off with a quick video on the Six Nations, which coming up I've seen a little bit of talk of. It's the greatest competition in the world. Is it? How does it compare to the Rugby Championship in some key areas? Yeah, because the stereotypes, I think, from both sides, the detractors of the Six Nations, so some of us New Zealanders and others will say, it's boring, they only just kick penalties and they don't score a lot of tries. Not getting up to watch that in the rain. And then the people who not big fans of the Rugby Championship will say, it's just New Zealand win it every year. A bunch of games played and then New Zealand wins it. How true is that? Is that fair? I've had a look at the numbers for the Rugby Championship and Six Nations from 2018. I'll do a quick comparison of those. The winning and losing records, and some of the attendance numbers as well. So we'll start with scoring. Six Nations and Rugby Championship. How do they do for tries? Because that's the thing. We always talk about the Rugby Championship being the place where you see a whole bunch of tries scored, and people who watch the Six Nations, detract from the Six Nations, saying there ain't no tries scored. Six Nations in this year just gone, average of 4.9 tries a game. The most tries scored in any one game was 9. The fewest was 1, so there were no tryless games. But if you look at the Rugby Championships numbers, they are significantly higher. 7.3 average tries a game. The highest tries was 11. There was another one with 10, another one with 9. So more tries being scored. Perhaps that generalization is a little bit true there. Penalties. Are there more penalties kicked in the Six Nations? Yes, there are. Average for the Six Nations just gone was 3.3 penalties per game. Rugby Championship, not that much lower. 2.25 average penalties a game. There were 2 games in the Rugby Championship with no penalties kicks. In the Six Nations, there was 1. But remember, Six Nations has more fixtures overall. So, yeah, not a huge difference there. Drop goals. There were 2 in the Six Nations just gone, including that one very important one. And 1 in the Rugby Championship. So not a huge difference. Neither side is really setting up with the game plan of drop kicking the other team to death. So what does that mean for the overall points difference? Because we might assume that with all these tries being scored, that the Rugby Championship results are blown out. And that, after one team's 20 points up, there's not much point in watching. The average points difference in the Six Nations was 14 points. So 2 tries, so pretty comfortable winners. The Rugby Championship was actually a little bit lower with 12.75. So pretty similar. There's not much between them. But the Rugby Championship results were actually a wee bit closer. However, for the Six Nations, you might say, the Italians always get a bit of a hiding. So they skew the results. And it's true, if you did remove the Italian results, even though they didn't get blown out in every game, that drops down to 9.9 points per game as the difference. So that's a fair chunk. We're down to single digits just. But then likewise with the Rugby Championship, you could say, the All Blacks tend to put on a whole bunch of points. So if you cut their results out, then the points would drop. Even though the All Blacks only beat the South Africans and lost to the South Africans by 2 points when they played them, so some pretty close games. If you cut the All Blacks results out, it also drops from 12 to 9.5. So that top team and that bottom team, if you cut them out, again, things even up pretty much. So for the way the points are scored, the generalizations do ring pretty true. The Rugby Championship has more points scored. The Six Nations has more penalties scored. I think part of that is probably due to the fact that the Rugby Championship's got a longer history of teams going for the bonus points. Six Nations, if you can get the Grand Slam, you don't need to worry about bonus points. So that's a factor. But still, I mean, 5 tries a game, 7 tries a game. Either way, you're getting some good value for your money. Winners and losers. How does this compare? Because let's face it, the Rugby Championship, and I've looked since 2012, which is when Argentina joined. It's been pretty dominated by New Zealand. New Zealand have won it 6 out of 7 years. The only time they didn't win it was 2015 in that abridged version before the World Cup, and that was Australia. Whereas you look at the Six Nations, since 2012, so the same time period, Wales have won it twice, Ireland have won it 3 times, and England have won it twice. So it's a fairly even spread. Half the teams have managed to get up and win it. I suppose for the Rugby Championship, you could say half the teams have won it because Australia's won it once. But still, 6 out of 7 is pretty one-sided. How about at the other end for the losers? Well, the Rugby Championship, Argentina's joined, and 6 out of 7 times they have got the wooden spoon. It's always going to be hard for them coming into the competition. And the results have kind of shown that. Although this year, I mean, they got the wooden spoon as well, but I think most people would admit that they were better than perhaps that result indicates. For the Six Nations, 4 out of 7 times in those few years, Italy's got the wooden spoon, twice Scotland and once France. So again, a bit more variation at the bottom end of the table as well. I mean, obviously you got 6 teams, so there's more chance to have different teams getting it, but just a bit more variety. So once again, that generalization rings true. The Six Nations, you legitimately don't know who's going to win it before the start of the comp. The Rugby Championship, it's a pretty safe bet that New Zealand is going to win it. Maybe they will lose it, but attendance. This is the most lopsided result of all. The average attendance for the Six Nations in this year just gone, 66,123. The Rugby Championship, a lot less, 36,138. Now, there's various reasons for that. I feel like a lot of those stadiums in the Northern Hemisphere are a fair bit bigger. Like New Zealand's biggest stadium's Eden Park, which can probably hold, 50,000? Whereas, like, Twickenham can hold 80. The Millennium can hold 70? So, bigger stadiums, perhaps. Although, I mean, the Southern Hemisphere teams have a lot of decent-sized stadiums, but perhaps not that kind of centerpiece stadium that some of the Northern Hemisphere teams have. But that's still not the only reason. I mean, you look, the highest attendance for this season just gone, 82,062 for the Six Nations. That was at Twickenham for England against Ireland. For the Rugby Championship, it was 66,318. That was Australia against New Zealand in Sydney. But the capacity of that stadium is 83,000, so there were still a lot of empty seats, despite getting 60,000 people through the gates. Lowest attendance, now this is a huge difference. Lowest attendance for the Six Nations just gone, 50,000. Watched France take on Italy in Marseille. Again, not a sellout. That capacity of that stadium, 60,000 plus. But the lowest attendance for the Rugby Championship was Australia against Argentina on the Gold Coast, 16,019 people. Capacity of that stadium is just under 30,000. So a lot of empty seats in that stadium as well. There were a few factors for that from memory. I mean, they just played a game in Brisbane, and the second game was in the Gold Coast, so perhaps would have been a better idea to move that game to a totally different area of Australia. The Gold Coast is not always the best place for getting the rugby crowd to attend, but hey, there you go. 16,000 people is not a whole bunch to go and see your national rugby team play. So yeah, what does this mean overall? I mean, both are good. Basically, I'm going to sit on the fence. I do like seeing tries, but there is also something more suspenseful about legitimately not knowing who's going to win a competition at the outset. That may sound a little bit arrogant as a New Zealander, but man, they just keep winning the Rugby Championship. It's just a thing. the record does kind of speak for itself. I do hope going forward that competition gets a bit more close as things go forward. And for the Six Nations, hey, if they can score more tries, that's fine. But I mean, I'm looking at the record and it's like 5 tries, 9 tries, 8 tries, 5 tries, 4 tries. I don't know, it's not all about the tries. I've quite happily watched a few games where there's sometimes no tries and I still find it entertaining, but hey, that's just me. So yeah, either way, whichever one's your favourite, Six Nations is coming soon. Big year next year with the Six Nations World Cup. It's going to be a good one. So yeah, I guess I'll sign this off by wishing you all a happy new year. Have a safe night if you're going out for New Year's Eve. I will be going to bed early because my children don't know it's New Year's Eve and will no doubt still be knocking on my door at 5:55 tomorrow morning, no matter what happens. So yeah, everybody take care. Let me know your thoughts on the comps, what you're looking forward to for 2019, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.